It's funny seeing Luffy running around with that afro, but even funnier some of the stuff that takes place in this freaking funhouse of horrors. One Piece, chapter 315, Secret Room. And you know what? This is a fun arc just for the sheer fact that it made me smile, you know. My family and I are getting towards the tail end of Skypiea now. I think there's probably about 10, maybe 12 episodes left. And, you know, and then obviously we'll hit this arc, and I know there's some extra filler added and everything else. But I don't know. I don't mind it, you know, especially when I you know, just started kind of looking at it for what it was, and just to sort of make you smile, to just sort of be funny, and at the same time just to kind of give you, I guess, a little relaxing break, you know. And realistically, I can see why it was put in here in between two of these heavy, high-powered arcs, Skypiea, and then, of course, everybody tells me Water 7, so... Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, and for 300 and some odd chapters now, am Jim, and I'm here to bring you another review on the light-hearted, sometimes comedic, funny laugh-out-loud tale of One Piece. Our last chapter saw us entering, of course, the you know, the final event, and that being combat on the Sexy Fox ship between Foxy, the Silver Fox, and Luffy, Afro Luffy, actually, which I thought was, again, very, very funny. Most of that chapter was a very one-sided battle where Luffy was getting, you know, caught up in some of the different traps and bombs and things like that Foxy had going for him. And really, the chapter ended off with us presuming that Luffy was blown up and hit by all of these Foxy face bombs that just happened to be on the ship. So that's where the chapter left off. That's where this one picks up. And it's neat because you get the announcer and he's just like, yeah, did he survive this and that, you know? And then you even have some of the Straw Hats are like, man, he just got blown up by all these bombs or what have you. Because, of course, they're watching from the shore, you know, trying to see the best they can. And Nami makes a comment about how it's bullshit that they actually have to, you know, choose their ship or whatever for the, you know, thing, even though it was supposedly random. But nonetheless, though, we go and wind up seeing as the smoke starts to slightly clear and whatnot, we see that Luffy didn't get hit by any of the bombs. He actually was very fast and at the last moment wound up pulling himself up to, like, the crow's nest, you know, up high up on the ship. But then there's kind of still smoke down there and the smoke clears. And then you go, and as the smoke's clearing, we see Foxy. And Foxy looks like all busted up and stuff, man. He's got, like, the cross-hatching marks all over him to signify, like, he's just been kind of burnt or bruised or broken, you know. And Luffy's like, did you blow yourself up? And he's like, no, I didn't. And Luffy's like, yes, you did. And these guys just such a goofball. Luffy then goes and winds up, you know, coming down or what have you. And Foxy goes and tries to, you know, just tries to go and use his slow beam on him. Luffy winds up kind of getting around him, and he goes and he's like, Luffy, or gum hook. He goes, gum hook, you know, and he hits him with a hook, which was really cool, you know. So he winds up, you know, hitting him. And then what Foxy winds up doing is he goes, and there's still kind of some smoke and mist clearing on the deck. And all of a sudden, you see Luffy sees what he thinks is the shadow of Fox, and he nails him, you know, and it's actually just a cardboard cutout. So this son of a bitch has had this, like, this is his own little fun house, right? So you got this cardboard cutouts popping up all over the place, and then, of course, with the smoke and everything else, you know, you can't tell which one's which. He's like, can you tell where the slow beam is coming from? And then Luffy goes and he's just like, you stupid pinhead. And this has been a funny theme that I should have mentioned that's been going on throughout the last 10 chapters. He calls this guy a pinhead and, like, kind of like an idiot, basically, and it hurts his feelings. And he goes and he always kind of goes down to his knees and kind of, like, throws a little tantrum, like, why did he call me a pinhead, you know? So he does the same thing when Luffy says that, and then Luffy can, of course, tell which one is him, and he jacks him up, you know? So he winds up going and then taking and realizing, or relying, I guess you should say, I should say, on Luffy's kind of dim-wittedness, you know? And he goes, and he's like, oh, look up there! And when Luffy looks up, he goes and pulls some handle, some lever, and a trapdoor drops Luffy down into the ship. So Luffy's in this ship, and all of a sudden there's like a conveyor belt that starts moving him backwards. And he's like, what the hell? Why is the hull moving? The son of a bitch has this trap door, and this thing is a conveyor belt to go and shoot him out the back of the ship. As Luffy comes flying out the back, and everybody's like, no, if he hits the sea, you know, he loses, right? And of course he can't swim because of his devil fruit powers, but he winds up going and grabbing on, you know, stretching up, grabbing onto the ship, pulling himself back up, and then goes and sees this door that, you know, that of course is open, that, you know, is going to be traps that goes down into the hold of the ship again, now it goes down into the lower decks, and Luffy, of course, so he's not gonna hesitate. I'm going to screw this. I'm going to get this guy, you know. So he winds up running down there, and then he goes to find him, and this is really just a series of, like, Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner type Looney Tunes moments, man. I mean, that's what they are. And honestly, this is the type of stuff that, you know, I loved watching when I was a kid, like animated, you know, in animated cartoons, American cartoons here, just for for some of the just the slapstick humor, and that's really what it is. So, you know, Luffy goes and sees him as he's running into this room, and then you go and you see Foxy, and he's on the other side of the door, and there's like this little platform that he's standing on the edge of, and he over to the side of the door, and there's spikes all in the room, right? And he's just like, oh yeah, he's like, you know, he'll come barging through that door and fall right into the spikes. Well, this deck was also the cannon deck where they had all the cannons and everything like that. Luffy goes and fires a cannon, goes and blows right through the wall, and Foxy winds up landing, getting, you know, hit by all these spikes and whatnot. And he's like, what the hell? And then Luffy's like, oh, there you are. And he's like, what do you mean there I am? So Luffy was just fired a cannon just to fire it. He had no idea that he was there, or at least that's what it was played out to be. So another series of just funny events, though, as he's running up and down the ship. He actually runs into the infirmary. Luffy thinks he sees him go in there, and he does this, you know, pin face, whatever the hell his deal is, Foxy face change or whatever. And all of a sudden he looks like this, he looks like a goofy version of himself with this weird, like, Cupid doll type face on. And he's in the infirmary, and he's like, oh, pretending like he's the nurse. And Luffy busts in, and he's just like, do you see somebody come in? And he's like, nope, what are you talking about? Is there something wrong with your face? Or is there something wrong with your head? And I think he calls him like a, what does he call him? Something a dumb head or something along blockhead or something along those lines, you know. So Luffy goes and winds up leaving. Yeah. And then as Luffy leaves, he's just so dim-witted and not bright in many different ways. He's just like, in his head, he goes and he pictures both of them, and he's like, he looks kind of like, you know, that looks kind of like him. And he never once thinks that he put a mask on or tried to change his face. He goes and he's like, maybe that was his sister or something. So he winds up, Foxy, I don't know if he attacks him or whatever winds up happening. They wind up in the kitchen, or at least Foxy does. And then Foxy's pretending like he changes his face again, pretends like he's a cook, you know. And Luffy comes in, and he's all like, Le poisson, and he's all like talking like he's this French cook, you know. And Luffy says something along the lines of, because he still doesn't know what's going on. And anyway, the guy winds up, Foxy winds up doing this, winds up using his slow beam on him, and then uses his Nine Tails punch, which I found kind of funny, because the only thing I've ever heard Nine Tails in before is, and I'm just at the beginning of my journey with Naruto, but that's where I heard that from. He calls it the Nine Tails punch or the Nine Tails attack or something like that. So he winds up going and hitting Luffy several times with that, you know. Fox trap counterattack, I think, is actually what it was. That's what it was. When he was in the infirmary, he does this fox trap counterattack where it's basically like this like metal jaw fox looking thing that grabs Luffy's face, and then he goes and he runs out to get into the kitchen, and Luffy still has no idea that it was him. He goes into the kitchen, and when he finds all this out, he's like, he doesn't know that they were one and the same, which again I found very comical. So he comes into the kitchen over here, and then the chapter ends up shortly after that, after he winds up doing this Nine Tails rush to him, and then he goes and he says, but it's not so much the actual, the attack that's actually going to hurt you. My attacks will hit you soon, but before that, what's behind the door? Why don't you go find out? Don't worry, it's not something living. That would be against the rules. But and we know that he doesn't follow the rules anyway, so I'm assuming it's got to be something in there. He's got a freaking dragon or a polar bear or something in there, all hopped up on crack. You just see like two gleaming looking eyes over there, and Luffy just, sort of as he's like slowly getting from being pummeled is going towards it. So so that was the end of the chapter over there. We're almost actually through the volume over here. And as I said, just a fun kind of romp through, just a reason to make you smile and give you a little bit of a break. I can tell you honestly that if this was 6-7 years ago when this came out, and I was, in the grind of reading chapter after chapter, week after week, something like this that took up, 3 or 4 months of chapters coming out, I probably wouldn't have been too pleased by about halfway through the arc, just because I'd be like, come on, I want something serious to happen to move the plot forward. But it's like with anything, there's going to be parts that, that seem like filler, that are put in there for comedic relief. And it might have just been that Oda himself wanted to take a break. And obviously the guy's kind of a jokester. He's very funny with a lot of the things that he does in his little SBS columns, and just anything that I've kind of seen that's been, written by him and whatnot. He has a really good kind of dark sense of humor. And I think that's really what's coming out in this particular arc. So definitely good stuff. My chapter question for you, though, is honestly, what are your thoughts on, I asked about the actual, ship, I think, in the last chapter, but, what are your thoughts on just some of the different, I guess, kind of smoke and mirrors tactics that Foxy is pulling over here, and Luffy falling for them, Just, we know he's dim-witted, but I mean, come on, some of these things were just, I was laughing because I was like, this is so atrocious, Luffy, I cannot believe this, and you're going to be king of the pirates? Come on, dude, So, anyway, leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much there, Nami. If you want to follow more of me and see more of me, I don't know why you would, but if you do, you can follow me over my other channel as well as Twitter and Facebook.